Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The Pirate of Clark Street. When Linda would bring home the newspaper for her father, he would carefully separate the individual sheets of newsprint and fold them into paper hats. On the coffee table next to his torn navy blue chair was where Linda's father kept his Japanese origami manual, which demonstrated techniques of sculpting paper into pleasing shapes. Nigel was determined to make hats, despite his daughter's distress and confusion over her father's pastime. In a room next to his, Nigel had collected close to 2,000 hats, all made out of newspaper. He numbered each one with a black magic marker. Nigel did this so that whenever he went out, people would know he was wearing a different hat than the one he wore the day before. The last time Nigel was spotted on Clark Street, the number on the side of his hat read 522. In the wintertime, Nigel wore a wool cap underneath his paper hat. Interesting beginning to this story. Nigel's 305th paper hat sat on the windowsill. The lights coming from the street illuminated the patterned folds on the side of the hat. Nigel snored. A slow breeze pushed the window shade back and forth. The alarm clock on Nigel's night table made an audible ticking sound. Nigel got up out of bed and walked into the bathroom. As he turned on the light, he looked into the mirror and squinted. After turning off the light, Nigel heard a cracking sound at the front door of the apartment. He heard someone's footsteps in the front hallway. Nigel walked quickly into the room next to his and donned his 504th paper hat. A burglar in a white sweatshirt carrying a suitcase was lurking in the living room of the apartment. The man was tired-looking, and he was holding a flashlight in his left hand. After donning his 504th paper hat, Nigel appeared energized with confidence. He walked into the dining room and turned on the lights. The tired-looking burglar with the suitcase in his right hand turned quickly towards Nigel. "Where have you been? We've been waiting for you. Do you think you can waste our valuable time and money by keeping us waiting?" said Nigel to the burglar. The burglar concluded that Nigel had mistaken him for someone else. He walked into the dining room and slid his suitcase onto one of the dining room chairs. "Listen, old man, if you don't shut up, I'm going to turn your face into hamburger meat," said the burglar. "Nonsense," said Nigel as he pushed the man into one of the dining room chairs. "Have you finished going over those contracts? Our client is waiting for your advice as to whether to write in a double indemnity clause," said Nigel. "Wait," Nigel continued. "It's obvious you need a drink. Brandy, right?" said Nigel as he poured the burglar a glass. "Yeah, whatever, old man, and then I'll give you all the advice you'll need," said the burglar as he slowly shifted to another chair at the dining room table. This is very tightly written, Will. Good job. While Nigel fumbled slightly at the liquor cabinet, the burglar stared at the number 504 on the side of Nigel's hat. His hands began to shake as Nigel walked towards the dining room table in his striped pajamas. "Here, drink this. It'll do the trick," said Nigel. "The question here is whether or not it's legal to write in a double indemnity clause in this particular type of contract," said Nigel, as he stared into the burglar's eyes. "Oh, I definitely think it's a good idea, mister. I'm with you all the way," said the burglar nervously as he fell out of his chair at the dining room table. "So, you agree? Then again, you always were a yes man," said Nigel. "Listen, Perry Mason, I'll tell you what I think about the entire matter and call you in the morning," said the burglar. Then the burglar quickly grabbed his suitcase and ran out of the apartment, knocking over a lamp on a table in the hallway. Nigel straightened the chair that the burglar had been sitting in, walked over to the dining room light switch, and turned off the lights. "He seemed rather hasty. Maybe I should release him from the firm. He isn't himself," said Nigel, as he took off his hat, walked into his room, and went back to bed. The following day, Nigel decided he needed some groceries, so he walked to the market and entered the store through the exit door. He was nearly hit by the rapid swing of the second electronically controlled door, but he managed to get into the store. Nigel spent 15 minutes trying to decide which kind of bread to buy. He stood for another 10 minutes in front of the bread, and when he couldn't decide, he opted to browse through the market for a while. After walking up and down every aisle, Nigel had forgotten why he had come to the market in the first place, so he bought napkins and left. Linda put up with the crowds and was at the Clark Street station in no time. Up on the street, she bought a newspaper and some Chinese food to bring home. Linda said hello to someone she knew in the lobby of her building, then took the elevator to the 5th floor. She fumbled with the keys on her chain at her apartment door. When she looked down, she noticed a square napkin sticking out from under the door. She opened the door to her apartment, picked up the napkin on the rug in the hallway, and walked into the living room, where she found 2 more napkins on the floor. The radio was playing loudly in the kitchen. "Dad, where are you?" said Linda as she turned off the radio. She walked into the hallway by the bathroom and knocked on Nigel's door. There were 2 napkins sticking out from underneath his door. She walked into the bathroom and heard a voice say, "I don't see where the witness's behavior warrants this type of treatment." "Dad, are you all right?" said Linda. She opened Nigel's door and walked into his room, which was empty. "Dad, where are you?" said Linda. She heard a noise in Nigel's closet. There were 5 shredded napkins sticking out from underneath Nigel's closet door. When Linda opened Nigel's closet door, a sea of square white napkins came tumbling out and almost covered her. Nigel was standing at the rear of the closet with a napkin in his mouth. "This court will recess until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning," said Nigel, as he waded out through the napkins into the living room. "What are you doing with all these napkins?" said Linda. "What napkins? These are my briefs containing the information I'm going to use to convict the accused," said Nigel. "Are you hungry, Dad?" said Linda. "I brought home some Chinese food. It's in the kitchen on the counter." "I am kind of hungry," said Nigel. He walked into the kitchen. "Chinese vegetables. Oh, good. Did you get any fortune cookies?" said Nigel. "They're in the small brown bag," said Linda. "While you're in there, would you bring out a pitcher of orange juice?" said Linda as she spread a tablecloth on the dining room table. Linda sat down at the table while Nigel brought out some plates and food. "Wait a minute, Dad. I think the heat from that container might damage the wood table. Here, put it on a hot plate, just in case," said Linda. Nigel poured a heap of Chinese vegetables onto his plate. Linda poured a glass of orange juice and opened a container of sweet and sour chicken. "Linda, what is that stuff you're chomping on? It looks good," said Nigel. "It's sweet and sour chicken, Dad." She poured some chicken on his plate and covered it with sweet and sour sauce. Nigel picked up the chicken with his fingers and began eating. "You're right, Linda. This is very good," said Nigel. He put down the chicken for a minute and stared at his fingers. The sticky sweet and sour sauce dripped off his hands. "Linda, honey, do you know what we need? Do you know what we really need in this apartment?" said Nigel. "No, Dad. What do we need in this apartment?" "I give up," said Linda. "Napkins," said Nigel. I think that is very tightly written.
I think so.
It's
Oh.
short,
Yeah.
direct,
Oh.
and packs a little punch.
Yeah. It's
Good.
It's old. It's a long time ago.
Yeah, well,
Long time ago. 25 years ago or something.
but it was published in '05
Yeah, but I didn't submit it until.
for many years.
Yeah.
Well, I